Together with that, we had this weird and wonderful tape consisting of all little sections of real steam organs, cut up, joined together in a very haphazard manner.
Hi, everyone. Tonight I'm continuing with the Beatles project. And, last night I sat down with Vlad and we watched a movie that just recently came out about the Beatles. I guess it was called Beatles 64 or something like that. It was focusing on the first time the Beatles came to the US in 64 and everything around that. And I had a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to kind of step back to the music early in this project and see more context, set it better, and kind of return to that era. It was a lot of fun. And well, I don't know, you might have noticed that I was kind of tired. In fact, we were both exhausted. We finished that movie at 11 p.m. There were some funny little slips that happened in the process. There was one song that I had heard, and Vlad didn't remember I'd heard it, so he took the headphones from me. Let's see, I guess that was This Boy, That Boy, This Boy, This Boy. And there was another moment when he said that the next song, well, what I'm doing tonight for the benefit of Mr. Kite, he said that was on the next side of the album, on side B. And well, actually, it's not. It's the last one on side A. Anyway, funny little things like that. It happens when it's candid, when we are just doing the best we can in the lives we live. But we are loving this journey. I am loving this journey. I am loving this project. Today, I got a nap. So even though it's evening again, and I am feeling a little bit tired, it's the end of the day, at least I got a nap today. And it's not 11 p.m. yet either. So I feel like I'm fresh enough. I can sit down and do this being for the benefit of Mr. Kite and have a grand time with it, with you. So let's continue from there. Well, actually, let me just say that for those of you on YouTube, you won't be able to hear the music. You know the situation. That's how it is. But first things first, let's watch my first listen to this, and then I will listen now in detail with the score. What transition? Being for the benefit of Mr. Kite. Well, the genre is officially identified as psychedelic rock, circus music, and experimental rock. This one is kind of circusy, isn't it? Well, we'll get into that. John got the idea for Mr. Kite when we were filming in Sevenoaks in Kent, remembers George Harrison, about their second day of filming their promo clip for Strawberry Fields Forever on January 31st, 1967. We had a lunch break, and we went in an antique shop on the way to the restaurant. We were looking at what they had there, and John pulled out this thing that we found, a little poster which had more or less the whole lyric of the song Being for the Benefit of Mr. Kite on it. Oh, you know what? I think I just decided I really like the Beatles. If they go antique shopping, secondhand shopping on their breaks, isn't that cute? I think he was just advanced in his awareness of putting everything in a song. John himself explains in a 1967 interview that it was from this old poster for an old-fashioned circus from the 1800s that I'd bought at an antique shop. We had been filming a TV piece to go with Strawberry Fields Forever. There was a break, and I went into this shop and bought an old poster advertising a variety show which starred Mr. Kite. Mr. Kite was a poster that John had in his house in Weybridge, Paul explains in his book Many Years From Now. I arrived there for a session one day, and he had it up on the wall in his living room. It was all there, the trampoline, the Somersets, the hoops, the garters, the horse. It was Pablo Funke's fair, and it said, Being for the Benefit of Mr. Kite. Almost the whole song was written right off this poster. Everything in the song is from that poster, John related earlier, except the horse wasn't called Henry. Well, come on, that's like... Now, there were all kinds of stories about Henry the horse being heroin. I had never seen heroin in that period. It's all just from that poster. And you know what? I guess I'm kind of fed up with everybody trying to read, drug references into Beatles songs. I can't really blame them. Look, I did it. completely believing that that was a big part of the inspiration for not Strawberry Fields Forever. I just read Strawberry Fields Forever. Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. And then I found out afterwards that actually John was adamant that it had nothing to do whatsoever with any reference to LSD. Anyway, at the same time, I can't blame people for it. Also, because I guess we've all become so used to Beatles lyrics having so many double entendres and different messages tucked in there, humorous, naughty, mischievous. So I can't fault people for it. But at the same time, I'm really happy that at this stage in their music creativity, in their careers, they were still, yes, they were more mature. They were, quite more, way more developed, both as individuals, as a band, and musically. But still, there is this sort of charm about just picking up a poster about a circus and writing a song about it. I think that is so innocent, so sweet. And I'm really happy that they're pushing back a bit on these suggestions that, okay, it was some allusion to some drug or other. Actually, it's nice to know that it wasn't always that way. I wrote that as a pure poetic job, John explains rather flippantly. I had to write it because it was time to write, and I had to write it quick because otherwise I wouldn't have been on the album. So I had to knock off a few songs. So I knocked off A Day in the Life and Mr. Kite. Well, you just get the job done. And yet, what fun. Let's listen to it. You know the thing I like about that introduction? I like this little organ, da 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 da, which sounds kind of like a flute. It has this. There's a real circus quality to it. It reminds me of some of the fairground music sounds. In fact, I think there's an actual organ instrument which is really well. You see, here's the thing. When I was a child, we had some stories on little records, like mini records, and they were dramatized. There was background music to the story that was being narrated. And I remember this sound when it had to do with, I don't know, elephants in a circus or something. So I don't know for sure. I'm a little bit hesitant to say this, but at the same time, I feel like there is a specific organ instrument which is associated with those old-fashioned circuses. And this organ opening here makes me think of that. At the same time, it could be just a cheery little flute. Da 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 dum, da 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 dum. It's just so sweet, isn't it? And the harmonica. Interesting melody, isn't it? Da 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 da, and it captures this idea of, well, a circus, a variety show. It's all a bit bombastic, and at the same time, there's kind of this simplistic element to it where, okay, we see all the fireworks and everything, the fancy tricks, but behind the scenes, okay, there are the curtains, there's the equipment, And there are these show people who do the show and then go on, but it's made to appeal to a really popular recreational spirit, isn't it? And this music does that. It's just bum, ching, bum, ching, bum, ching, and the bass. Ding, I like that bass actually. It's not so prominent as in some of these other pieces that we've listened to on this album, but it's still there. And I guess I've mentioned a few times that in this album, it feels like the bass is a really prominent feature of the instrumental shape of each piece. Somehow, this bass, it was his, well, I can't say for sure because I don't know what came after this, but it feels like this was his first opportunity to really almost hold center stage in a way. There are places in the music where the bass is so powerful, it's so present, and it's so interesting that it feels like he's almost got a solo spot. And this song, it's a little bit more blended than some of the others. It's not so heavy, but it's still there and it still has that fun quality to it. Let's look at this melody because the shape of it is interesting to me, and it's a real feature of this song. It has this sort of feeling of almost zigzag, da 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 da, and it also kind of feels like it's just going dot to dot through an arpeggio. Well, of course, it starts with the C minor arpeggio here, and it does that da 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 da. But of course, it's not staying right on one chord. It's moving through different harmonies. Da 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 da. And then we have da 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 da. Da 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 da. You see that sort of zigzag shape, don't you? And it wouldn't be so noticeable if it stopped there. But then it's almost like it's flipped on its head and becomes inverted. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. And that is the point at which it really jumps out at me as being, oh, cool. This is an interesting feature of the music, and it really is an identifying element. It's one of the things that creates the feel of this piece. But when it starts, it's almost like, I don't know, we're just walking. Bum, 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 bum. Walking through, maybe walking through the circus, going from one display to another, to another. Let's go here, let's go there. Let's go get something from the concession stand. Let's go look at that show. It has this feeling of moving around, kind of, as I said, dot to dot, point to point, but without a real sense of direction or need to arrive at any particular specific location. We're just going point to point, and that's why it kind of feels like you're at a circus, you're at a county fair, you're at some sort of entertainment show where there are different things happening. You could even say you're at a zoo, right? I mean, the idea of different displays, different points of interest. You're not in any rush. You're not trying to go achieve something. You're just going point to point to point and enjoying the journey. And that's what this melody line is kind of giving the impression of, at least in this first verse. Well, we've listened to enough music that we can understand that it's very much about context. And the same bit of music can change to mean something different or feel something different along the way. Let's see how that goes as we go. But this is how it feels when I first start listening to this piece.
God has lastly through a hogshead of real fire.
And I guess one of the things that contributes to this feeling of walking is the actual bass walking pattern. Bum, dum, bum, bum, da-dee. You know, you can hear it right in here pretty well.
Celebrated Mr. Cave.
And at the same time, the drums are contributing to this point-to-point feeling because it's... And again, it's this feeling of, okay, we go to a certain spot where it just kind of zigzag, point here, point there, dot to dot. Let's listen to that section again just to hear all these different elements. Background, just a little humming, faint bit there, which fills out the, enhances the ambiance of it.
Will dance and sing as Mr. Kite.
So, a couple more things. This melody is so factual. It's so, I was noticing right here, Misters K and H assure the public their production will be second to none. Misters K and H assure the public their production will be second to none. Second to none. Just down. Second to none. Not second to none. Oh, wow. But they assure the public their production will be second to none. And so it goes. It's a sort of recitation feeling, very much like a poster, an advertising poster. You know, you have the images, you have the bit of text there, which is kind of abbreviated. I even love the fact that he included in his lyrics, Messrs. K and H. You know, even abbreviated the Misters. Misters K and H. Like, straight off the poster. And the music, the melody, is simply the vehicle for reciting that list of facts, that advertisement. It is an advertisement. An old printed advertisement. No TV drama here. It's just a printed poster. But then, and of course, Henry the Horse dances the waltz. And there it gets crazy. Ooh. And we feel like, oh, wow, we are here on the scene suddenly.
Production will be second to none.
Hearing the bells, the decorations, the fancy outfit that Henry the Horse is wearing as he dances the waltz. The recitation. Isn't that a great, sudden, unexpected interlude to the entire recitation? It's as if we stopped reading the text on the poster and started looking at the picture advertising the circus. And at the same time, it's more than that. It's as if we are there in the moment. We have stopped walking one point to another. We have stopped, wandering the grounds. We are now mesmerized by this horse dancing a waltz. And, of course, it has to switch from 4 to 3 because it's got to be a waltz there, right? That's hardly surprising at this point as I'm listening to the whole sequence of Beatles music. They are great at throwing in little time changes. We've heard all kinds of sophisticated and creative and kind of novel stuff in that regard. So this, I almost feel like not mentioning, but at the same time, it's so obvious and in your face and such a significant part of the whole moment is that time signature change. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and the circus comes alive. This show in front of us is just exciting to our eyes, and it's as if we're a little child again, and we're seeing this horse all dressed up in finery with chains and bells and braid and everything, and is dancing a waltz. Oh, wow.
And of course, Henry the horse dances the waltz.
What is that? It's almost like, okay, show's over. On to the next one. Or, you know how it is when you get on a carousel and you pay your few dollars for it and you're going round and round and round as a child, right? You're going round and round and it's just so amazing. You're going up and down and the music is playing and just about the time you're all into it and your imagination is running away with you and you're just having a wonderful time, suddenly it comes to a stop and they say, oh, ride's over. Oh, Mom, can't we go again? Daddy, please. It's that feeling. It was a show, but it's too short. Can we pay to see it again, please? And just as soon as it got started, it's over. Well, notice what's happening here. Okay, hold on. I've got to look back at this Hand Me the Horse Dancing the Waltz and see something because I didn't notice it earlier. Okay. Ha! This is fun. Okay. In this last instrumental section at the end, we have, and I'm just piecing it together here now. So you see it kind of happening in the moment. We have, after this woo that starts, we have showing up here in the organ. Dum ba da ba dum ba da 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 bum. Da ba da 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 dum bum. Da ba da 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 dum bum. It's kind of it's almost an exact repeat of the melody that has been sung in the sung verses. There are no lyrics here. I think we should go to the piano for this. So let's have some fun exploring this little thing that is showing up here. I'll just set the pencil here for a minute. So this melody in the last section. And then, of course, repeats. A little bit of different ending there. And then okay, we get the idea, right? It continues a little bit further, but that's far enough for the moment. Let's go back and see what is happening at the beginning for the benefit of Mr. Kite. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? It's the same outline. But I'm noticing something else too. This is in a different key. We're in the key kind of C minor here. Okay, what if we jump down here to where this happens? And we are in a different key. We are... kind of working in D minor. So we've kind of transposed from C minor up to D minor, but it actually sounds, it's pitched lower, but the key center is a step higher. Okay, I'm going to keep going here because now I have several things on my mind. All right, here's the next bit at the end. And then oopsie, what did I do there? And that's the end, right? Okay, let's go back and look at the beginning and see what we find here. How does it go? Yes, again, we're in a different key. Well, now this is in the key of D minor here. So it's starting, building on D minor. Over men. Yeah, am I reading that right? Print is kind of small. It's kind of built around D minor, isn't it? Which means the verse is starting in C minor, and it kind of moves up to D minor in the last half as it over men and horses, hoops and garters, lastly through a hogshead of real fire. It's really built around D minor. Okay, looking back down here, this was kind of ending in E minor, wasn't it? Yes. And we have this for men. It's not a perfect imitation, but it is so close. It is so, it's basically just a variant of the melody, which means this whole instrumental section is basically a verse, an instrumental verse. Now, back to what I was first noticing when I was comparing the waltz with that. Harmonies. You might have heard me just talking my way through it out loud. Harmonically, this waltz is the same chord scheme, the same harmonic progression all the way through. Let's just compare the first one and you'll get the point. The first phrase, D minor, 7, D minor 7, D minor 6, A. All right, go down here and we have the same here. D minor 7, D minor 6, A. Same exact chords. It's just that Henry the Horse's Waltz was missing the melody, but it was still the same harmonic progression. Okay, if I were to sit down and go through every chord change in this whole song, I suspect that I would find that this is simply a transposed up version of the first verse, the sung verses. I can't guarantee it, but most probably, at least close enough to say. And this is cool because what I'm seeing here is, which song was it that the Beatles did, and the guitar solo was just a repeat of the melody, the sung melody. There was one. It's kind of that, isn't it? It's not a newly created instrumental section, newly created solo melody. It's just repeating the verse. So, what fascinates me, though, is not so much that. Okay, that's kind of an interesting thing to notice that I've just discovered as we're going through this. But more than that is the way this is progressing through the keys. We start in the key of C minor. I guess it was the opening song on this album, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, which I talked about how it shifted up at one point as it was building in intensity and the suspense of the introduction, building up to the introduction of the band itself, and then of course their celebrated singer. Here, this transposition is happening more subtly, and it's happening in the middle of the verse. So we start C minor, and then as we saw halfway through the verse, when we get to the inversion of it, it moves, it shifts sideways a bit. We don't really feel it as a transposition, but yet it moves over men and horses, hoops and garters, and we kind of end right here in D minor. This is, in this way, Mr. K will challenge the world. We end on a D minor chord there. And then, if we go back to the verse, it's the same thing over again. But if we go on, when, of course, Henry the Horse dances the waltz, this, which is the instrumental verse, starts in D minor, and halfway through, it moves up to, kind of shifts over to E minor. And we end pretty much centered on E minor here with this. And if we follow to the end of the song, it's the same thing. We end in E minor. So we've kind of transposed twice over the course of the piece. At the same time, it's not a transposition that is sudden and noticeable and notable as a shift up, a lift into the next section. It happens gradually over the course of the verse, and suddenly I find out that we're somewhere else. That is a really nice, interesting, and special element of this piece. So why do I say that it's special? Because I'm just thinking about how this whole thing feels, this sort of jaunty circus advertisement, the lightheartedness of it, the playfulness of it, the humor of it. I mean, the whole idea of setting a poster to a piece of music, and how do you convey all that is represented by that poster in a piece of music? Well, I feel like this transposition is an important part of it, because a circus is something that is it's building up. It's something that is it's active. It's not really, we're not settled. We're not settled in a place. As I said, we're moving around. Well, fact is, I've never been to an old-fashioned circus. I've been to plenty of county fairs. And so I'm kind of relating to this by the storybook circuses I've read and the county fairs I've experienced. And the fact that I can sort of imagine what an old-fashioned circus poster would look like. So that's how I'm approaching this. And the music fits that scenario for me. The idea that we go here, we go there, we see this activity, we see that show, and there is movement, there is progress. There's this zigzag, one location to the next. But there's also this element of non-permanency, impermanency. The idea that the circus has come to town and then it's going to leave. And we ourselves, we go to the circus, we enjoy it, and then we leave. And if we are traveling through different keys through the course of different tonal centers through the course of the song, we start lower. And this whole thing is minor, isn't it? Which is kind of interesting as well. It gives a little subdued melancholy element to it. But I'm not going to dwell on that. We go from C minor, and then we step up to D minor, and then we step up to E minor. It's a progression upwards. We leave having enjoyed, having been lightened in our mood and entertained. It was fun. At the same time, we never return home to the original home key to leave, meaning this isn't about our trip back home. This is about our progress through the circus, through the show. And we don't necessarily even go out the same way we came in. We travel through, we see everything, we experience everything, and then we go out. It's this transiency, this quality of, it's not really anchored. And I love the way that the harmonic scheme seems to convey that. And, well, I want to listen through the piece one more time with that in mind and see, now that I've seen it on paper and heard the song twice now, I want to see how it feels if I give that attention as well, not just focus on on the instrumental stuff, which I was enjoying immensely, and all of the color that happens there. But now the harmonic element, which really jumped out at me in this song. That's where we started. For the benefit, that's where we ended. And so I did feel it. Actually, I felt it a bit differently than I expected. I felt it as I felt it most strongly when it returned to the beginning of the verse, and it suddenly made me realize why that verse has such a feeling of, kind of ordinary recitation, advertisement, putting the posters up, da 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 da, because it is the lowest part, the lowest pitched, the lowest centered part of the music. And so every time we go through the verse and come back around to the beginning, it has this almost pedantry to it. Da da ba 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 da 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 da. And then from there we start to move up into a more dynamic, active, colorful feel. And so it's this great contrast between this idea of an advertisement, which is kind of dull and, it's an advertisement. And then, of course, the real experience, which shows up in spots, like with Henry the Horse, and even the introduction and the closing and all of that. It's a really fun, creative piece that way. And I guess I feel like somebody could really tear it apart and dig into it in minute detail and say, well, this is this. But it's just in general, just a broad stroke to look at this and see how it feels and notice these things. It's a great use of the Beatles' creative harmonic skill set. And, well, being for the benefit of Mr. Kite. And I can't help but notice how we just came from the devastating "She's Leaving Home" and the intense emotional experience that is. And now suddenly we've been sent to the circus to kind of forget our troubles and lighten our mood. And that, I guess, is where I'm going to say that the minor key setting is really suitable, because it helps to link the two together. We just came from something which was incredibly beautiful but sad, that piece of music. And when you really immerse yourself in the emotional side of it, it is truly devastating. Again, in that one, the singing was the disconnected, non-dramatic recitation of the story, telling of the story. Not even no, it was more than recitation. It was telling the story, setting the story from a certain emotional point of view. Here, for the benefit of Mr. Kite, I feel like the minor setting does two things. It helps link the two together. It helps us transition from one to the other. Because we start out kind of da 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 da. Okay, it's almost like it's a bit of the empty life that had been lived in She's Leaving Home. On the other hand, the minor key in many parts of the world is associated with carefree childhood. And I don't know if I want to say that is the association here. But there is this idea. Because one of the first things that we learn to sing as a child, da 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 da, mommy, mommy, na 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 na. It's that minor interval, which in many parts of the world is picked up on as being the identifying sound of carefree childhood. The idea of children playing in the street, playing outside, calling to each other. And there's so much of this minor calling. And here we are with a child's dream going to the circus. Ah, wow. Ooh, the dancing horse and everything. And this minor tonality. And I don't think it just I don't think it just is about sadness or emptiness. I think it does convey an element of innocence to it. And it's set in a very non-emotional manner, isn't it? It's not, I mean, it's a poster, it's an advertisement. And so we get all of that in it. And as I'm noticing how the album progresses and carries from one to the next, those are the thoughts going through my mind as I'm thinking how we get from she's leaving home to for the benefit of Mr. Kite. And at the same time, although there are links and there are ways of saying, okay, we got here from here, it's not completely random. At the same time, what a great contrast. Again, they have thrown us from one end of the spectrum to another. And seems to be a specialty of theirs on this album. So I'll see you soon.